Hello, everyone, and welcome to DefTalk, the talk show that focuses on everything World of Warcraft, whether it's classic, retail, or the players that play it. We're going to cover it all today. And today, unfortunately, we do not have Melderon with us. He's very busy and is off doing his own scientific research that he could not make it for this one. But we have with us someone just as scientific, just as awesome, someone who really looks at the game in a very different way. Let's welcome Dailato. How you doing, brother?
Hey, I'm fine. Thank you very much. How's it going?
I'm doing great, man. I'm really excited. We've been waiting a while to get this going, and I wanted to apologize to everyone. Like the Def Talks have been a lot less common recently, but as we've been getting closer to the game, a lot of stuff has been going on. So, but this is one I've been really particularly looking forward to. So, man, I am just so awesome, and thank you for coming out today. So let's jump into it, shall we?
Yeah, no problem. The hype's been real.
I know it really has, and as of this recording, we are now less than 4 days away from the launch. Pinch
Goodness
me,
alive.
is it real? Seriously.
Yeah. Yes, I can still hardly believe it.
I can't either. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So first off, first thing where we like to start with everyone, how were you introduced to WoW, and kind of give us a story behind that.
Okay, yeah. So, when I started off, I'm not entirely sure when it was in WoW's life cycle because I'd been researching into WoW for much longer than I actually started playing it. Like, I knew the formulas behind healing spells before I knew how to play a priest because
Wow.
I'd never made a character. And the reason for that's actually quite simple because you needed a credit card to start off with in the Netherlands,
Hmm.
play the game, and my parents wouldn't give me theirs, and I couldn't get one because I was like 14.
Right.
So I was stuck waiting until they brought out the prepaid game cards in the Netherlands. But all my friends
Oh.
could play because their parents gave them their credit cards. So I would talk with my friends and be like, "How do you know any of this? You don't even play." Um, so I managed to join a server eventually with where my friends were on, and again, I don't know exactly whether it was 2005 or 2006, because at the same time I remember that I was really upset that I could no longer cast Power Word Shield
Hmm.
on people outside my party.
Right.
But then at the same time, I'm thinking that was before it even came to the EU. How could I possibly remember that? So
Huh.
no idea.
Yeah, that's
Um,
interesting, and that's
yeah.
just really interesting that you were already looking at the game under that kind of microscope at such a young
Oh
age.
yeah.
That is really
Oh
cool.
yeah. Well, I was coming from Diablo 2 as well, you see, and
Okay,
my brother and I were crazy about that game as well.
so you did
We
have a introduction into Blizzard games. It's kind of the whole
Oh yeah,
universe
absolutely.
behind. Yeah,
Warcraft 3, Diablo 2, played the shit out of those games.
nice, nice, amazing
At like age
games.
9 or something, whatever.
That's interesting because like that kind of aspect of stuff, I did not start looking at until way later into my WoW career. It was
Yeah.
more of like, okay, this button does that, I'm gonna press it. This button does that, I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah.
press it. You know?
Yeah, there's definitely a development in terms of that, which we can get into a bit later,
Gotcha.
which a lot of people go through. Just to bring it back to what I actually played as to start off with, I
Yeah.
started off as a night elf male priest,
Oh.
and I got that up to about level 19, and then my brother decided that he wanted to give the game a try, and some of his friends were playing on the same server as me, but it was a PvP server, and they were on the Horde, so he deleted my character.
Oh no, he did not.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yes, he
god, I
did.
would have killed Meldron if he did that.
Yeah, well, you should have seen his shitty grin, honestly. But
Brothers,
yeah,
right? Brothers,
yeah,
man. Yeah.
right. So I ended up making my actual main character after that, which I stuck with for um whew, probably about 10 years,
Wow.
all the way through Wrath and through the start of Cataclysm, and that was Dailato, the human female priest.
Oh, nice, dude. That's awesome. So you've had that name for a long time.
Oh yeah, yeah. It goes back to about 2005, I think. 2000, yeah, about 2005.
Now, this is something that we could probably jump into a little bit more later, but I think it's so interesting how just the name can really, for me, be a break, like a make or break kind of deal. So, I
Mm.
recently had the experience of, creating, having the name reservation day, doing all that. I had gotten my name on the first server that I thought I was going to be playing on, and then when we figured out we were going to be playing on a different server, Scarum represent, Scarum represent. So no, you're good. I actually first made my character, went to go make it, and my name was taken. So I had to stick.
Oh, God,
I had to go with
yeah.
Defcamp TV, but then eventually found out someone was just holding the name for us. But that whole day
Yeah.
where I thought I didn't have my name, like I was. You can ask the guild. Like I was so upset.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
to me, so much of who I am is my name.
I understand completely. You get attached to that name. It
Yeah.
becomes part of your identity. It's like a second version of yourself.
Seriously, like, and it's not. It really doesn't even have that much to do with like, the channel and everything like that, and people recognizing me.
No.
It's just the fact that is the name I've had
personal.
since late vanilla. Exactly, it's very personal. I don't want to run around seeing like the TV at the end of my name when I know that's not who I am. I'm Defcamp, man.
Yeah. That I'll do you one better than that. I said for me, for the most part, Dailato, I identify that more with myself than my actual name.
Wow.
It's been with me for so long, for with so many people, and I think also, of course, a part of that is that I have a lot of friends online and they only know me and address me as that.
Gotcha.
So, obviously, that's a part of it as well.
Yeah, I can understand that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it does grow into its own character with its own personality to a certain extent for a lot of people.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it is just a version of yourself.
Exactly, and it's it's like if I had to go around everyone calling me, Matthew instead of Matt or something like that. I was like, no, my name's Matt. Like, don't call me Matthew, call me Matt.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
Yeah. So you made.
But at that point, we're kind of going into like the sort of idealized versions of ourselves that we can pretend to be, which is not restricted to MMOs, but also just places like Facebook and Instagram and such, and the tendency we have for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like for so many people, if they don't get their name, they'll just be like, okay, I'm rolling on another server. Or whereas some people are like, oh, okay, I didn't get my name, no big deal. And maybe they didn't have that name as long or whatever, but some people just don't have that connection either.
There's very different methods of identification when it comes to video games. Yeah, we can actually get into that a bit if you like.
Yeah. Let's go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
So the thing with gaming is one of very few forms which I think are very inherent, not just to humans, but to all species when it comes to learning. Like anything from a cat and a dog and a human, they all learn through playing. And it's a very fundamental part of human psychology. And when it comes to playing with relation to MMOs, most of it is with regards to social interaction. So you're learning about certain social factors, like hold on a minute. I've got the little list here. I don't want to miss anything.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
No, I can't seem to quite find it.
That's all right.
Oh well. Never mind. I'll just try and do it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
So it's about things like what are the rules of the society you live in? How can you affect those rules? How do they apply to you? How do people respond to certain types of behavior? How will they perceive you if you act a certain way versus how you would normally act?
Huh.
There's a lot of things that you can do in a game where the repercussions go away the moment you roll a new character.
Right, exactly.
And that's quite fundamental to, I think, character identification, because there's not all people identify with a character in the same way. So, to give you an example, actually no, let me just go over the categories first.
Yeah.
So you have about 4 different categories in which people identify with their characters or as their characters.
Right.
The first and the most simple one is I am. So I am my character. The second one would be I'm with my character. The third one would be I'm not my character. And the fourth one would be I'm against, but that's usually reserved for enemies.
Right.
And you mentioned actually in the preamble something about the world. I think it's very amazing how they've managed to create a world in which you have so many things in which you can define your character as being against that. It gives a lot of sort of tribal unity between people if they identify as being against the same thing. Right. That's something you see in the real world as well. It's a very powerful tool. It's not necessarily something that you identify as, it's something that you identify against.
So almost
And
like
just the
Horde
fact that
against the Alliance, like
exactly,
Horde, right? Okay,
exactly.
yeah,
The fact that Kevin Jordan was talking about this earlier, the fact that they did end up creating a two-faction system when they hadn't earlier tried, I think that's a huge part of what made WoW so addicting.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's so interesting that you say that because like there are so many different aspects. And real quick, I just wanted to give a little bit of background. And guys, Dailato reached out to me with this paper. First of all, about character identification, about all this really amazing stuff, storytelling when it comes to the game, stereotypes and all this. And so, like, what is your background in terms of academia?
Well, with regards to this in particular, I have a master in politics and society in historical context.
That's awesome. That's like so. It's so cool how you can kind of like bring WoW into that because it's such like so much goes on inside the World of Warcraft that
Oh
when
yeah,
you're playing it,
absolutely.
you really don't
Yeah,
realize. Like for me, I definitely associate myself as that character when I play. That's why I feel like for
yeah,
me, it's a lot easier to pick a
yeah, absolutely.
male character, right? That even though it doesn't like look like me, I feel like I have to
Mm.
kind of associate those things for me. And some people can not have to do that. Something like I know a lot of people who play a female character, and it doesn't mean that they want to be like a female or anything like that. It's just the fact that they
Yeah,
feel
actually,
yeah.
that was actually something that motivated me to send that paper in the first place. Because I was tuning into one of Asmongold's stream a while ago,
Hmm.
like a year ago, and he was like, "Oh yeah," he was going over all the classes and stuff and like stereotyping them, like, "Oh, paladins are beta males and
Yeah.
warriors are alpha males." Of course, he
Yeah.
plays a warrior. God help the world if he's an alpha male. But it was like females. Oh yeah, people who play female characters, they're weird boys, and like the fuck. And then I think at some point later down the line, I was like, well, it's Asmongold, who cares? But then
Exactly.
sometime
Yeah.
later like, down the line, I heard you saying something similar. I was like, no, 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 no. We're gonna issue a correction here because this guy usually knows what's up.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
So yeah, so that's how this whole thing started off. Actually, is because I play a female and I don't think I'm a weird boy.
Right, and a lot of
So
the times, like
yeah,
we joke about it. You know what I mean? We joke about it, but I've really come to understand it more on a different level because, like, there are times where I'll play a female character, like especially like a female orc or even a female undead, and it's just the aesthetics of it that really
yeah.
are just pleasing. You know what I mean? And like,
Aesthetics are huge, but
yeah,
we have to also think about something. Why are they aesthetically pleasing? And that's what we can get
mm,
into a bit later, because
yeah,
that's a huge part of what I'm trying to explain here.
absolutely, absolutely. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get
So
into that. Yeah,
well, I think we've already touched upon the first of these categories, the I am category, which I think you represent quite well. Actually, you're someone who identifies very strongly with their character,
right,
and I think probably a lot of the aspects you like about yourself are represented in your character.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I think there's probably not a huge amount of aspects that you don't embody that your character does.
Yeah, and I've talked about this with a lot of people before, and there's something that the undead does for me as well, and it's the fact that I
Yeah.
feel like people, when you see an undead, they automatically think a certain way. They automatically prejudge that person or prejudge them into they are
Hmm.
this, but in truth, they are actually something completely different. And then
Yeah.
being on top of that, like an undead priest is almost like it's almost like it shouldn't be like it's and the fact
Yeah.
that I'm this person who I may have had troubled past, like especially I love the how the undead started off as a human and now there's something different. It's almost like for me, because I feel like I've gone through a kind of rebirth with my recovery and stuff like that, that really just speaks to me. And then I'm a priest, so I have these, parts where I love helping people with this and another, but I also have a shadow side to me. So for me, like just Undead Priest speaks to me on so many different levels.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's that's part of a um, stereotype which fits within the priest archetype, so to speak, and within the undead archetype. There's a lot of stereotypes that fit within an archetype. We can go into that a bit in depth later. I think we need to do a bit more preamble before I can really
Yeah,
fully go into that.
absolutely.
But yes, no, that's I'd say your experience is probably more typical than not
Really?
in regards to people who identify as you do. Yeah. So just to get back to that, most people who start off who haven't played any kind of games before, who don't have any sort of preconceived notions in that regard, they're sort of somewhere a bit in the middle of the three main identification categories. And then they sort of, depending on their gameplay and what they like and what they enjoy, they end up going more in one direction or another. So the next one I'd like to say is I'm not, and this is probably the one that people gravitate more towards during certain aspects of gameplay. The more they play, the more familiar they get with the game, the more they get into min-maxing, theory crafting, etc.
Okay, right.
So whenever you're, so let's say, for example, right, I'll just talk about myself to keep it clear. When I played my priest, I really, really, really fucking hated PvP. I was on a PvP server because I'm not a bitch, but I did really hate PvP.
Right.
Because every time, my entire memory leveling up was undead rogues ganking me. Just over and over. Like, I swear, there's not a single zone in which I have not been ganked by an undead rogue. So, I really did not like PvP, and my whole character was basically like, well, you know, I feel bad when I'm killing them. It doesn't feel satisfying. So, I'm just not going to PvP, really.
Right.
And whenever I did PvP, you know, when I go to battlegrounds or arenas or whatever, there was this sort of disassociation between the character and the action. So it's like, yeah, I'm doing this, but it's just me doing it. It's not the character. So
yes.
Yeah. So at that point, you're identifying as I'm not most of the time. And the thing is, not only do most people do this more as they go on, it's also certain people with, for example, streamers, which tend to do this because by the nature of the stream, they are the center of attention, not their character. Their character is just a tool for their entertainment.
Ah, okay.
So it's very difficult to be a streamer, but there are exceptions. For example, Esfand, he really plays up on the whole paladin thing, right?
Right.
On the whole holy crusader, I'm zealous, I'm going to drive everyone out of Europe, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Actually, that might be more Drakova, but whatever. That's cool. Yeah. So those are a bit of a hybrid, so to speak. So, as I said, it's more of a spectrum with it's like a triangle with 3 points, and you're somewhere in the middle, right? And most people tend towards one or the other, but it also depends on the activity they're doing, the kind of role they're playing in real life. And I'm not, as I said, I think a lot of hardcore raiders, hardcore PvPers, basically anyone for who their character is more of a stat stick or a tool, tend to identify in this regard.
Right.
And this is also why you see certain personality traits just completely not correspond with the character they're playing. Because, you, Asmongold, you're not an alpha male, mate. Why are you playing a warrior? But it's got nothing to do with each other, you know?
Exactly. And, you know, I'm thinking of myself now, and, you know, I've often at times been like, oh, yeah, it's red, it's dead, this, that, and other. But there's so many times when I'm out in the world, and I'm like, I don't want to kill that person. But then there's something in me that's like, well, okay. And then I pretty much disassociate myself from it and just like, well, I'm in the game. You know what I mean? And it's how it is. I'm just put in this place.
This is purely for the honor kill. It's not what I would do normally, but it's purely for the honor kill.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's much less of me being like, oh, I'm out for blood, or this, that, and other. But I will say, when, you know, after being ganked for a while, this, that, and other, it does start to go towards the other way.
But then you go shadow form.
Exactly. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is
that's
the beauty of playing a priest. Yeah.
That's the beauty of playing a priest. Yes, I love it. That duality.
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yes. So third form is I'm with, and I think most people who don't stream end up somewhere in between I am and I'm with for the most part.
Okay.
Because I'm with is basically what role players do, and that doesn't mean that you have to be a role player in order to identify in this manner. It means that your character has certain traits which you don't really embody yourself, or which you don't necessarily care to embody yourself. So for me, I made a hunter, rather my second main. During early TBC, I made a hunter during the pre-patch, actually. No, not the pre-patch. You can't make a Draenei during the pre-patch. Like the first patch that I couldn't make it.
Right.
I made a Draenei hunter. And for me, I made this because I wanted to PvP.
Ah, okay.
But I couldn't do it on my priest.
Right.
Because I didn't like the PvP on my priest.
I got you.
So I made this character which was, by their nature, really vengeful, really, you know, a real hunter.
Huh.
You know, just go out and chase people down and shoot them with whatever.
Right.
And personally, I don't really identify with that, but I loved having my character that did identify with that, so I could feel good about doing it.
I totally understand that. Yes, yeah. That's how I feel when I play my rogue. Exactly.
Right,
Yes.
Rogue. Oh, I love Rogue.
Yeah.
Love Rogue. Never leveled 1 to 60, but I love him.
Great fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Especially
great
when,
fun to PvP with.
exactly.
Hate
Yeah.
leveling.
Especially when you're ganking a priest in STV
Yeah.
named Dailato. Yeah.
Don't you dare me. Bring the whole guild down on you. But so that's a good way to start a open world, by the way. Gank people until they call the guild down on you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
It's
or until they rage quit.
Right. It's just so interesting because like I've realized all these things kind of unconsciously or just not like
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now that you're saying it, it's just like duh, absolutely, yeah, this makes sense, and it's just it's so cool to hear it and hear this in a way that just really clicks with me, and it's just so interesting as well because I know for a fact everyone else can relate in one of these ways,
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad it strikes note with you.
Yeah.
It's always difficult trying to convey some of these concepts to people
Yeah.
in a way that they don't just start laughing at you.
Yeah.
But yeah. No. I think we've gone over the types of identification pretty much. Yeah. I mean, we could also go into how this goes into like different games and stuff. Like, if you're playing Counter-Strike, you're probably not identifying as or with your character very much.
Right. So whereas an MMO, it's definitely an RPG. It's a lot different.
Yes.
Yeah.
MMOs are pretty unique in their ability to allow you to do all three at once. It's RPGs in general, but especially MMOs.
Yes. Yeah.
Because MMOs have the ability to not only let you make your character as you like, but also to let you play it off everyone else in the world. And
that's the thing
that you can only get in an MMORPG.
That's what I wanted to ask. So how does interacting with other people kind of play into all this? Because for me, when I interact with someone else, it kind of makes me more into that I am role. Because I start buffing people, I start healing people, and we're someone else, but it could put them into the I'm with because they start ganking. So it's all different to how someone reacts to that, right?
Yeah, indeed. So really, we're skipping a bit here, but we can already start going into stereotypes in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this kind of goes into human psychology in general and how people make sense of the world. So I'd like you to, and people listening, to try and think of stereotypes not as some negative portrayal of a race or whatever. Just think of it as what people consider normal. Just if something is a stereotype, it is something that is considered to be not out of the ordinary.
Okay.
And if something doesn't fit a stereotype, then it can either be the opposite of a stereotype, which is in and of itself a stereotype, or it can just be boring.
Right. Okay. So like a Tarn tank. That's also
exactly.
the raid lead or the guild leader.
Yeah, exactly. So this is why I say the opposite of a stereotype is also a stereotype, because let's say, for example, you have a gnome rogue with a gnome warrior with like pink pigtails and an old granny face or something.
Right. Yeah.
Just like that's not a character you roll because it fits a stereotype. Because there's no such stereotype within at least Western society where you have an old granny with pink pigtails, like 2 feet tall, going around kicking everyone's ass with a mallet 3 times the size.
I wish there was, yeah.
Yeah, well, but did you see the laughter?
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly why, because it gets laughter. That's why people would adhere to the opposite of the stereotype, because it's comedic.
Right.
Because the opposite of stereotype is comedic, because the foundation of comedy is the unexpected.
Wow, you're actually making me understand why people play gnomes. This is something that I've pondered my entire life.
That's because you play Thor and Shaman, isn't it?
Yes.
You only see gnomes as football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, actually, we can get into gnomes specifically a little bit more, because I feel like they're a bit misunderstood. But to get back to stereotypes, the thing is, people react to the stereotypes just as you just did. So if they see something that's, well, as people would say bluntly, it looks stupid.
Right.
It's funny. And the opposite is also true. So if you really adhere to a stereotype, it's cool. And people will react to you based on the stereotype that you are representing. So if you've got like someone who's playing, a dwarf warrior tank or something, male dwarf warrior, obviously, because that's also a stereotype we can get into, the gender stereotypes, then they're going to have certain expectations of you being, a sort of chill beer drinking guy.
Right.
And, willing to go out in the party, be really loud and tank all the hits.
Yeah.
And people like that stereotype because it's useful to them.
Absolutely.
It's nice. It's comfortable. I think that's probably the best word. Is things that fit stereotypes are comfortable because they're familiar.
Absolutely.
So if you have and familiarity comes largely from a variety of factors. So part of that is biological, part of that's cultural, which will also differ from west to east. By the way, this I think is the main reason why Eastern MMOs do not do well in the West, because they do not play to the stereotypes that we have in the West.
So true, dude. That is so true. Yes.
I just don't think it's translatable. Even if they have really great gameplay and all of these fun mechanics, they just don't fit the stereotypes. Everything from the art style down to the class choices, it's just not what we expect.
Yep, and you can't connect with it on the level that you could.
You can't fundamentally get that connection that you can, like with the sort of Lord of the Rings type characters that we have here in the West.
Right.
Because that's foundationally, most fantasy is based off Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
And that goes also for Warhammer, and then Warhammer 40k was based off of Warhammer, it's just Warhammer in space, and then Warcraft is based off of Warhammer Fantasy, and then they got booted by Games Workshop, and they had to make it their own IP. It's all an evolution of those old medieval tales and myths that we have in terms of what we expect of a fantasy world with fantasy creatures.
Exactly.
Yeah, Harry Potter as well, same story. We connect to it because at some level in our culture, we've all had some experience with these concepts. They're familiar to us. We like them. They're comfortable. They feel like home. And that's something that you don't get a lot in real life nowadays because we don't live in a medieval fantasy world.
Yeah, that's true.
But so that's where the stereotypes come from. Of course, there's also personal experience, and that's where someone like you comes in. Your personal experience plays a huge amount into how you perceive the undead, how you perceive the priest, because what you're giving is an interpretation.
Yes, right.
The archetypes of a undead or of a priest or of a male or female are pretty broad. There's lots of stereotypes within each of them. What you give to it specifically is unique to you. And I think that's also part of what makes it so powerful as a tool for self-identification in an MMO, is because it teaches you about yourself. It teaches you about what you value, what you like, because your interpretation of an undead priest is probably a hell of a lot different from the average interpretation of a cackling madman killing everyone with shadow.
I'm absolutely sure it is, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite a wide difference, but it still fits within the archetype. It's just a different interpretation.
Right.
Yes. And for another example, actually, your brother interprets shamans as kind of scientists. Now, I'd never have thought of that, but it kind of makes sense. You can fit it into the archetype. Because there's a lot of broad traits which are represented by classes. Because that's what the classes essentially are. They represent very broadly a number of traits which create an archetype, which is a very broad coverall term for multiple stereotypes which have a lot in common. So the rogue could be all sorts of things as well. You could be, a swashbuckler, an assassin, a femme fatale. Could be
a ninja,
a ninja, Prince of Persia.
Yep.
There's so many things which fit into that stereotype, into that archetype, which are themselves a stereotype, which you can then, pick and choose your own bits for to sort of create your own unique stereotype of you.
That's so true. I didn't realize that it's you can. I obviously it makes sense, and I realize, but it's just when you say it and you think of like how wide it is, and for each person it's different, and you just try to fit it into that. Yeah, I mean, you just said it. It's can be so different for each person as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And through exploring yourself in this manner, you learn a lot about how other people react to you based on how you treat them in character.
Huh.
And that can teach you a lot about why you're being treated in a certain way in real life, or what you might do to get better results socially in real life. That's a transferable skill, so to speak, from World of Warcraft to the real world. And I know personally a lot of people with like autistic tendencies who've learned quite a lot from, have gotten a lot better socially from spending all day behind the computer
Yeah,
because they were playing World of Warcraft.
I for one am definitely one of those people who I had a lot of issues socially, a lot of which were due to my anxieties and the fact that I with my addiction and all these other things I didn't really know how to engage with people unless I had a substance in my body, and then like having WoW allowed me to do it in a more natural state, if you will. You know what I mean? That taught me how to engage with people in the right way, and also gave me the confidence to engage with those people because I now understood that I could be myself, and people would actually, a lot of people would, actually kind of relate to me, and it would be, and people if they didn't, it kind of allowed me to understand, oh well, and it taught me and this is what I love about WoW. It's taught me so many life lessons,
Yes,
that
very much so.
yeah, and it also gave me the confidence to be myself to the point where I could stream, where years ago I would have never dreamed to do anything like that. Never.
No, you've had quite a journey. Absolutely, it's been quite inspiring hearing you tell about it as well.
Thank you.
That's
Thanks,
for sure.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. Oh goodness, where were we?
So something I wanted to ask you as far as the stereotypes. So there are a lot of people who will put okay, so obviously an undead rogue, someone who likes to PvP and do these things,
assholes, all of them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Cargos is one of those people who really has trouble seeing any kind of positive light in a rogue, right? Where I have played a rogue before, and I think this is where playing a certain classes and playing more classes will allow you to understand.
That's actually something. Oh, it's so good you mentioned that. Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the things which I think is most interesting about WoW. Is it can teach you to see things from other people's perspective in a way nothing else can.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. But it requires you to play more than one character.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. No. So this is something which I think actually, in general, like WoW can teach you a lot about how you're treated based on certain things. So let's say you're playing a healer, for example. You're going to feel a lot more desirable in terms of how people treat you, because there's not enough healers usually going around, especially while leveling, to get through all of the dungeons. So you're going to feel pretty desired while healing. Whereas if you're a DPS, especially one that needs to roll on a lot of weapons that the other people are, you're going to feel kind of expendable, like really expendable.
Oh yeah.
And you're going to be like, as a result, you're also going to have different things demanded from you. So as a DPS, you're going to have a demand for performance above everything else.
That's why so many DPS feel like they have to try so hard and be on top of the DPS
That's
meters.
Right. Because they can't stand out in any other way. Because other than that, they're just a part of a much larger DPS bubble, which is everyone in the party. Huh. And that's actually something which I've got that written down right here. What can you learn from playing a DPS? How to stand out from the crowd.
Wow.
This is really something that is very very typical for all of the DPS classes.
Yeah.
Is that they all feel the need to stand out from the crowd, and they try to find ways to do it. And by trying to find ways to do it, they learn how to. And a lot of the time, that's just from performance, but it could also just be by being the funniest fucker in the raid.
Yeah, exactly. Or being the chicken in the raid,
Which I think is why most of the time, if someone's pulled the boss before time is up, it's a DPS, probably a hunter.
Yep, probably a hunter. Exactly.
Probably a hunter, yeah. Not because they've got long range, but because their DPS sucks, so they can't stand out by doing high DPS.
Yep.
That's how you get class clowns in real life as well, mate. It's the people that can't stand out from their grades, can't stand out from their athletic performance, so they just become the class clown.
That's so true. And how that translates into WoW. That's That's so true. And a lot of times, like for a DPS example, I when I was DPSing, I always felt compelled to, try to like when I'm healing, I definitely that there are other things going on, and being on top of the meter is great and all, but like being on the top of the meter of on the DPS meters really was the way for me to stand out in that aspect. And back in the day when I was a Shadow Priest in the Burning Crusade, like being a Shadow Priest, being anywhere close to the top felt really good.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, and
yeah. But that's the thing. Just hearing your raid leader say, "Hey, good job on topping the DPS meters," with your name attached, that feels good. If you're a
yeah,
healer, you're basically going to get thanked after every other fight, like "Good job, healers,"
right, right,
right? But yeah, I think the thing with healers, by contrast, is you don't really learn how to stand out from the crowd, but you do learn how to socialize with others because everyone wants you to be their friend and come and pocket heal them or whatever.
yeah, or give them power
Or,
infusion
or,
if they're a
or
mage. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly, or all that stuff. So
yeah,
so so you get a lot more attention, and you're sort of forced to come out of your shell as a result because
yes,
people want to talk to you. You can't just ignore them; they're in
yep,
your guild.
yep,
You know. I think that this is just some of the things which you could take into consideration when you're creating your character is what not just what fits you best, but what do you aspire to be, and what would fit that the best as a class, because you can try out having those traits that you aspire to have, being that person that you aspire to be, without taking the risks associated with it in real life.
wow,
I think that is something people should consider as a secondary option. Obviously there's the option of just picking whatever you're most comfortable with as you are,
right,
but most of the time people don't want, I think at least, to fulfill the fantasy of being who they are. They want to fulfill the fantasy of being better than they are,
and who they can be potentially. Yeah,
the best person they
right,
can be.
yeah,
Yeah, what they truly think is worth being,
huh.
and that's something that an MMO can grant, which basically nothing else can unless you get really lucky in real life.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I feel like so many people, myself included, have really learned a lot about myself through playing WoW. Like I learned for a fact that the thing that makes me feel best in the world is helping other people.
Yes,
And
you learn your values.
yeah, absolutely. And I, I never really knew what I wanted to do in life. I had my interest, right? I love history, I love
Yeah.
science. And kind of where everything led me though was to be put into a role where and especially playing WoW for in particular, like playing a healing class since late. My first class was a rogue, but like I had to find myself a little bit, and that was during my transition in life where I was going through a lot of things, like with my addiction and all that. And then I found the healing class, and I think that was my first kind of introduction to, hey, I mean, obviously it was helping people before, and like in that role, but I really like this. This is something that I feel really it's really gratifying, and
Yeah.
I think that was kind of looking back now, one of the first times I realized, like, wait a minute, maybe I could do something like this in my real job, in my real life, and actually,
Mm.
have that give me that same gratifying feeling in another way. And it kind of, I kind of led myself there, not really thinking about it like that. But looking back now, it's definitely it played into it in a pretty big level, I think, because I really learned more through WoW. How, like, I mean, like, yeah, there was like I've helped people in other ways, and but in realizing that I can also help people and still get something out of it myself, and also kind of, because I was a very much of like a people pleasing kind of person, and but also
Yeah.
stand up for myself and kind of not let not be like a passive person. And it just taught me so many lessons in what I actually really wanted
Oh
in
yeah.
life.
Yeah.
So
Being kind doesn't mean you need to be taken advantage of.
exactly, and
Yeah.
I had a lot of
Absolutely.
issues with just not speaking up for myself and not being the person that I wanted to be, because I never learned those skills because I was always using a drug
Yeah.
to just bypass all that shit, and I it
Yeah.
was like going
Just
on
zone out.
autopilot basically. Yeah,
Just zone out. Make yourself numb.
exactly,
And
exactly.
but yeah. Yeah. No. No. I know a lot of people who are like that.
Yeah, and I feel like from what I've learned, from that world as well as from the WoW world, I use those things in my everyday life and in work as well, and how Oh
yeah.
and how and I translate that into a way that obviously I'm not going to tell them the story of when I went to do a rag kill and how this one guy wanted me to do this, but I said no, I'm going to do this. What I mean? I'm not going to tell them that story. But
honestly, I think people should take WoW experience into account when applying for jobs.
I absolutely think so too. I mean, obviously there's a stigma that's attached to players and stuff like that.
I'm not saying you can or you should.
right.
It should. The recruiters should. The recruiters should be asking about, hey, did you play WoW?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely would. Well, okay, were you an officer in your guild, and
we can talk about that in a bit as well. Yeah, I've got some stuff about that too. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I just
okay. Well, we've been over DPS and healers, so let's just go over tanks before we move on.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. So So the main thing from just finishing off healers, the main thing demanded from healers in my eyes is responsibility. Because no matter if you wipe, it's always the healer's fault.
Oh yeah, absolutely, every time.
Yeah, you're going to be people are going to desire you being there and all that, but if anything goes wrong, it's your fault.
Yep.
Yeah, that. Unfortunately, it's the tanks that are the most critically important, but you're the one with the responsibility. Just typical human behavior. The leaders that can make the decisions, they don't have to take responsibility.
Yeah, it's so funny because like a tank will mess up the pool. They're like, oh, I messed up the pool, we wiped, and everyone's like, yeah, no, well, basically, even if they know it was the tank's fault, everyone's okay with it. They're like, oh, okay, it's it's the tank. He messed up, he couldn't get the pool right. But if it was something with healing, what the hell? What were you guys doing? Like,
Yeah. So this is the thing about the tank, and this is actually also just partially because there's so few tanks necessary in a raid. But tanks will be treated as the critically important part of any part there, and they can get away with a lot of shit as a result. And there is one thing demanded from tanks usually, though, maybe not in raids where they're not necessarily the raid leader, but definitely in dungeons, and that is leadership.
Yep, absolutely.
You have got to be able to direct the party if you want to get anything done.
100%.
The rest of the party is basically just sitting there like, yeah, I mean, it's your job to mark everything and tell us what all the marks mean.
Yep, and tell us where to go because my ass is gonna get lost.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna follow wherever the tank goes.
It's so true.
No, that's but that's tanks for you. So this is probably one of the most important things to me is what you can learn from playing the tank, and that's how to be dependable. Because tanks are by far the most dependable people in any dungeon, any raid.
Yeah.
Because they have to be. Because that's what's demanded from them. If you're the main tank for a hardcore raiding guild, you cannot miss a raid. You have to be dependable in real life just to be dependable in game.
I just really real quick want to say another thing about like my past. So back when I was having a lot of those issues and all, my brother Melderon took on that role as being the tank. He was playing a warrior primarily then, or this was also back in Wrath. So he was playing a Death Knight, and he always tanked, and he was the person I depended on for everything at that time. And he kind of took on that role, like, and really, really, really went with it. And, I depended on him for things inside the game and out. And as I got better and learned to depend on myself, he transitioned from that role to more of the, playing, and then when he started playing on private servers, to playing the shaman and being more of the, scientific kind of looking at things and exploring that completely different. So it was very interesting, though, how when he felt like he had to kind of help take care of me, he automatically went into that tank role. And that's what he was playing in game as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just thought it was. I always think it's so interesting because, like it's very much. And even I've messed around playing a tank before like that, but it never was something that stuck with me because I felt like, for me, I had my little niche, but I feel like my brother, when he was going through certain things in his life, would go towards that role in game as well, and kind of and then when that wasn't needed of him as much, he would go towards a separate role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny actually. Me and my best friend, we talk like this about what we're doing as well. So we when we were both studying, sometimes I'd be helping him. I'd help him with his study, And then later he was helping me get through my study, and it's like, yeah, I'm tanking, you're DPSing now, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like now you got to play the support. It's very interesting how these things just translate to real life with close relationships, at least.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So yeah, let's back to the tank and stuff. That yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, that was that wasn't just about the end of the tank stuff, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So it's but for me, like I really feel I've tried tanking before, and I actually do enjoy it. I do. I've played a feral tank before, which I actually really do enjoy. And for me, I feel like when I play that role, I'm put into the position, and I've shaman tanked as well as like dungeons this and the other. I'm 100% put into the role of being into leadership, and I'm the one in the front of the pack, directing
Oh
everyone
yeah.
where to go. And I also do feel like it's sometimes, and we've talked about this one with Josh and kind of the classic that a healer can be put into kind of like a rear we call it the rear commander, right? Where
Oh yeah.
where they are
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well kind of directing and assisting the tank in
Yeah.
things that normally, the tank sometimes
Normally
wouldn't.
the tank does. Yeah.
Right. So there
What?
is that
So
role, yeah.
I like to call this the sort of the duality of the healer role, because
Mm.
there's two, I think, main stereotypes that fall into the healer role. One of them is the sort of standard support, and I'm here to nurture. I'm very kind and devoted. I'm going to just heal everyone. You're my babies. The other one is sort of more the, yeah, no, you're my minions role,
Yeah.
and yeah, and everyone in this party, you don't get heals if you fuck up.
I've definitely been there before, man. I've definitely been
Yeah,
there before.
it's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is where so tank, you go and do that. This is the pool. Here's the marks. You do that. You do that. I'm just going to sit here and wait. And by my grace, you may not die
Yes,
if I feel
yes,
like it.
yes.
Like,
Warlock, how dare you life tap at this moment? Like,
so yeah, exactly. Like, oh, tank, you overpulled. Well, I think I have a better chance killing this pack with the 3 DPS alive. So I'm just
yeah.
going to let you die. And and if you'd like, please don't fuck up like that again.
But sometimes
I would very much appreciate that.
sometimes
Could you
I've,
please commit to not fucking up like that again before I resurrect you?
I do feel like sometimes though there are certain groups where you kind of have to take on that role.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the priest, and I think that's also part of, like, just in character. When I had to do that on a priest, I was like, you annoy me.
Yeah,
You will now
yeah.
serve me. Oh goodness.
It's so true, man. Because it definitely it's one of those things where like as a healer you have control over life and death for these people, and you kind of
absolutely.
realize that. And if
But
someone
it's
messes
also
up,
part.
yeah.
It's also part of you being forced to have responsibility for these morons.
Exactly. Yes.
So at a certain point, you're willing to be their benevolent, healer.
Yeah.
But if they start messing up and they start yelling at you, it's like, okay, if I'm going to stick around, you're going to start doing what I say, motherfucker.
Yep. And I love that. I love that about the healer, man.
It's
can
absolutely
really,
wonderful. You just put people in their place.
exactly. You got You can really play your cards well, man. Yeah. It's really fun. Yeah.
Indeed, but that's also part of being the healer,
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it's Mama turning into Mama Bear.
Exactly. Yep. That's so
Wonderful.
true. Oh man, this was really interesting. Talking about the class dichotomy. Yeah. So as far as looking at the classes and then looking at the world itself, how do you feel like the world kind of plays into everything as well? Because I know for me, I feel like the world is definitely one of the most prominent. The world is probably one of the most prominent characters, right, that I interact with, and it can definitely change how I play my character at times, what I'm doing, and I feel like even the mood of where I am can have a huge effect on how I am playing it and what I'm kind of going through. So how do you think the world kind of plays into all that?
Well, it's the framework.
Yeah.
It's the circumstance within which you are creating your character. It's the circumstance within which your character finds itself. And in that regard, I think it's quite nice that in terms of just lore and story and atmosphere, WoW doesn't pull too many punches.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Yeah.
It's it's definitely got some darker tones and some darker areas, and at some points you might find your character just doing things which you're like, I don't really want to, but I have to, and I think
Right.
that's very character forming as well. Let you really, especially if you're identifying as or with your character, let you think, how would my character really feel about this? I mean, you don't necessarily have a choice whether you do it, because you need that XP, but you
Exactly.
can certainly think, okay, this is something I don't feel comfortable with, or something that I'm fine with, or at least my character is. And that can also teach you about yourself, about where are your limits, what is your, what is your final straw?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a
How
lot.
far
Yeah.
are you willing to go for a reward?
Exactly. There's a lot of things out there, like where you do a quest where you feel like you're. There was some stuff in BC. I remember I was playing a paladin, like you had to like go and I forget what you had to do, like burn a church or something crazy, as a blood elf paladin, and it was like I feel like I'm going against what a paladin would do at this point, or or a priest at a certain point, like and
Yeah,
you kind of are faced with that dilemma that, well, I'm gonna just maybe disassociate myself from my character for a second
yeah,
or something like that. Yeah.
yeah. The world is the mirror your character reflects off of.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever you're doing, unless there's something to show you what it is, there's nothing there. You can't really see your character without also being in the world, without also seeing the world.
yep, yeah, yeah. It's really interesting how at times you're put into a certain position where kind of have to see what you're what you would do in it, and it's very,
Hmm.
at times it's very eye opening, and you realize, oh wait, maybe I really don't like this. I really don't like being this
Yeah,
kind of
exactly,
person. Yeah, and you
exactly.
learn a lot about yourself sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's also quite character forming, is to know that I can do something which I don't feel good about, but without it necessarily, changing who I am.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a sign of character, is people being able to do that.
Or you say, "Oh, I was just following orders," like yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's also that, of
yeah,
course, but
yeah,
no, I mean, it's character building.
yeah. It
There's
is
lots of times in life when you have to do shit you don't really want to,
exactly.
and this teaches you that, yeah, you got though.
Yeah, sometimes you have to, or sometimes
Sometimes you got to struggle through.
something got to struggle through, or if it's something that maybe you're faced with a morality dilemma, and you don't have to do it. Maybe there's certain times where you won't do it because no,
Yeah,
and there are times sometimes where you're given that choice where, okay, I don't really have to do this quest, I'm not going to do it, or I don't really have to go through this whole process. And I really
that's an
like,
option.
yeah,
Yeah,
I really like a lot of times where you know you're faced with, like, okay, we'll use for the example, which is kind of, I guess you can use this for an example, but the water totem quest for shamans. You have to do a lot of running
yeah.
around to get that friggin' water totem,
Oh
but
yeah,
it teaches
you do.
but it teaches you that putting the work in, you get what you are,
You
like, you
get
have
the
to put the
reward.
work in to get
Yeah,
the reward. And I think classic WoW
absolutely.
is such an amazing example of that, like the whole
Yes, in
leveling
in that
process.
regard, the world almost functions like a society, or a company, or your
Yeah,
family.
yeah,
Yeah, like your parents. Like they offer the framework within which you can grow up.
exactly. And the whole leveling process, you can look at it that way, because for a lot of people, I really enjoy the leveling process, but for a lot of people, they look at it as, oh man, it's, you got to go through all this, but the reward is at the end of that tunnel. And then a lot of the times you realize, hey, you know what, the reward was also the whole experience, and you realize that
Hmm.
doing this whole thing really wasn't that bad. And a lot of the times you'll make it into your head so much worse than it really is, but then
Yeah,
when you actually do it, you actually learn
I,
something
I
from
think
it.
the real
Yeah,
world for playing World of Warcraft is how much you can grow out of it as a person.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that's absolutely the most. Yeah,
Very interesting stuff, man. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. See, we can go a bit into like individual classes, races, and gender if you like, or we could go into like different activities
Oh, I would love to
that you
go to
can
the
do during WoW.
individual. Yeah, a little bit about that. Absolutely, yeah. Individual classes and races and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's take it from the top then, because we'll start with gender then.
Okay.
Um, so something that you've probably noticed, and probably makes a lot of sense already by now, is that um, people who play warriors and intend to tank play males.
Right.
And people who play any healing class and intend to heal play females. This is very, very noticeable in the statistics of class distribution and race distribution and gender distribution.
Right.
And this is just a lot to do with just like the stereotypes surrounding masculine and feminine traits. So things like nurture and kindness and devotion, they're just things which are very typically associated with feminine behavior.
Right.
And this is something that you can very much see when people pick, say, a priest. So if people pick a priest, a lot of the time they'll pick a female because they associate, at least if they're picking it to heal, not if they're picking it as shadow.
Shadow,
obviously.
yeah.
They'll pick a female just because it fits the stereotype better.
Right.
And that's more comfortable for them. It's more comfortable for people around them. They'll get treated better. As a result, a lot of people who do pick a male, they kind of feel themselves find themselves feeling a bit uncomfortable about it, especially if they're a human male priest.
Yeah, or rolling shadow, like like, oh, I'm just gonna become a shadow priest now. This is something that I've really kind of I understand it too, because for the most part, for me, I feel very comfortable being that healing role, and as a male character for me. But I think it's because maybe my own personal experiences.
There are differences between the races here, though.
Oh, okay. So let's hear more of that.
So specifically for a human male priest, there's a lot of bad associations with human male priests in Western culture.
Yes.
And people get kind of uncomfortable about that, especially when they start making jokes about dresses and altar boys.
Yeah.
And so there's a good reason why you don't see a lot of that going on.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't think about that, but you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Secondly, there's also just the fact that it's a man in a dress. There's not enough vests in the. If vests were more common, I think you'd see a lot more of it. But since almost all healers wear dresses, not a lot of people are comfortable playing a man in a dress. It doesn't matter if they're male or female themselves. It's about playing as a man in a dress.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, am I more comfortable playing a beautiful woman in a dress who's also really kind and healing people, or playing a man who may or may not be a pedophile and is definitely a drag queen in a dress?
Right.
Like, for most people, playing something that fits the stereotype is far more comfortable, unless they're very insecure about their sexuality, than something that isn't their own gender.
Right.
Because it still fits within their framework of what they're comfortable with as a person.
Right.
And I think that's something that often gets confused by people, like, oh, you're playing a different gender, are you gay? Like, no, it's just that doesn't factor into it in the slightest. It's about what's comfortable, what's seen as normal within the society that I'm in.
What's acceptable, and that's so true, because a lot of the times, like, and honestly, I gotta say, it's very eye-opening, because I don't really play Alliance that much, but I do definitely could see that more as an Alliance player. A lot of people not wanting to play like a human male, or not wanting to play. But you do see a lot of like dwarf males. But when you say human, it's definitely has a different kind of, it has a whole different feel to it, and
the main reason why people play dwarf males, actually statistically, people still play more dwarf female priests than male priests.
Really? Wow.
But the reason they pick male priests is because A, dwarves have awesome beards, and B, because a lot of positive stereotypes about females, and this is just the way it is, I think, is related to beauty.
Yeah.
And dwarf females are kind of dumpy, kind of frumpy.
But they're beautiful in their own way.
I quite like them, to be fair.
Yeah.
But they don't fit the stereotype of a beautiful, sexy, powerful woman, because a lot of female power is in sexiness.
Exactly, of what we see as.
And anyone who's ever danced on a mailbox will tell you this much.
But it's it's what the social norm is too. It's like, even though a lot of us disagree with it and think it may not be right, it's kind of still in the back of our mind.
It doesn't matter what you think about it. I mean, it's partially biologically driven. I think you're going to have a bad time fighting against that kind of stereotype.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is just, down to, is it also an empowering fantasy?
Right.
Because people like to feel empowered, obviously. They don't want to, play something that doesn't make them feel good about themselves.
I wonder.
Playing as something that they might consider not beautiful or even ugly, it's not something that people find empowering.
Yeah.
unless it's also evil and smash his face, in which case it's a
Right,
male power fantasy.
exactly, yeah. But I
Yeah,
wonder,
that's a male power fantasy, and
right,
then we can move on to the warrior.
right,
Yeah, well,
exactly.
sorry, what were you
Yeah.
saying?
No, I wonder if the male dwarf has anything to do with the Scottish accent, like wearing kilts. I know it's a little
Oh, yeah.
all, but like you know,
Well, the male dwarf is such a bro.
yeah. Well, like is it that too because they have that Scottish accent
Yeah.
and like maybe it's more acceptable for I don't know. Maybe that's a little just out there, but
Might be.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's just got more to do with the sort of stoic nature of the dwarves and not giving a fuck. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and just being a bro in general. Like
right.
so many dwarf male players are just bros.
Kind of like how the Taurens are. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and to some degree even the troll males. I think.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just attract chill people due to their race, and as a result, they don't care that much about
Yes.
all that stuff. Yeah. But yeah, moving on to warriors, then that's like the exact opposite. Because if you're sending a female to go to the front lines to take a beating, that's not acceptable in any culture.
Hmm.
And that's what the warrior does. They go out there. They've got huge bulking muscles. They rip people apart. They're very violent. It's all very male traits, but it's definitely not female traits.
Right.
So
Yeah.
in terms of stereotype, of course.
Right. But then when you do, I think
Yeah.
I would say the most female warriors you do see is probably orc, because the orc females feel like they're a warrior.
They're buff as hell, yeah.
Yeah, and then they definitely kind of, even the whole like Tolkienian thing, like it's like the female and male are they're both kind of warriors. So I feel like the more female warriors you do see are definitely orc warriors, orc female warriors.
Yeah, that might also just have to do with the racials, mind you.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. But if you look at just the statistics, for example, Tauren female versus Tauren male warriors, it's like 5% of the population is Tauren male warrior and like 0.019% female Tauren warrior.
Wow.
Like there's a stupidly huge discrepancy, and it's the same thing with like priests, and in fact most healing classes, like there's far more female Tauren druids than there are male Tauren druids.
Wow. Huh.
And this is like part of this is just like looking at what the statistics are and then finding out a reason for them.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I'm not pulling everything out of my ass.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
but yeah, and you have similar stereotypes. I think this is also probably why well, not this specifically, not the gender stuff, but in general, I think this is why you see usually mage, warrior, and I think rogue or priest are tied for like third place. Those are the three most popular classes because they're the broadest archetypes. Like the most people can find what they like within those classes.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like there's definitely more of a wide range and more of a play area there for anyone to kind of feel comfortable with what they.
Yes, because they represent the three main ways of having power through raw physical strength, through knowledge,
yep,
or through subterfuge.
Yep. Wow. Yeah.
And then a priest is like the female equivalent, where you have power through support, through influence.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is really eye opening, I gotta say, because a lot of the times, I gotta admit, it was hard for me to kind of understand just because I don't associate things that in my own way, because I'm, like I said, I'm definitely more of that. I am this character kind of player, where I feel like, and I think my own, like I said, my own experience plays into the part as well a little bit. But for someone who, like you said, maybe they're playing Alliance, and it's definitely eye opening, and I think that's really just cool to understand. When you're actually playing the game, and now you'll see this, and you'll be like, oh, this person is just. This is just what they feel more comfortable with. Like it's just how they see the world. You know what I mean? It really reflects on how each person sees the world.
Yeah, but that's the thing. But that's the thing. And then you'll say that, and then there'll be some stupid, little gnome warrior running around. And but now hopefully you can also see that's just someone who doesn't identify with their character in the same way as you or I do.
Exactly. Yes.
Because there's multiple, and they're trying to learn different things. Like they're engaging. With the mechanics of the game, they're engaging perhaps with the community at large, but they're not really engaging with self-development through that sort of very personal personality experience because they don't have any direct identification with a character and its actions.
Right.
They're more engaged in self-development through, learning the math. I mean, maxing, maybe getting popular with the community. But it's a different kind of learning process that they're doing because it's a different kind of game that they're playing, essentially.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think it's important to realize that is like if you're going to roll on, like, for example, an RP server, not everyone's going to be RPing in the same way you are. Because
Absolutely.
they're not identifying with their character in the same way you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we can, if you like, we can go through some of the traits of the
Yeah.
classes and races, which is how I see them anyway, and I'm sure you can add to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's do it.
And this is what I think is if people find that they aspire to certain traits, or they just identify them within themselves, they might be able to use some of this to help them decide on a class or race to pick. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's start with Priest, because I think we're both most familiar with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, see, I have a few things written down here. First of all, nurture, which is pretty self-evident, I think.
Right.
Kindness as well. Devotion, duality, and wrath.
I like that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's,
so, do you want to sort of go into explaining why, or?
Yeah, I think it really plays. For me, how I see Priest is you have basically two talent trees revolved around support and nurturing and helping and really just being able to give other people a leg up, whether it's giving them power infusion, buffs, healing, and I feel like there's no other class in the game that has that much. I mean, maybe paladins, its terms of their buffs and stuff like that.
Paladins definitely also have the devotion trait, but I don't think they have nurture and kindness in the same way the priest does.
Yes.
At least from a archetype point of view.
Exactly, and that's where I would say priest for me definitely has more of that than any other class. And then at that same time, you still have that wrathful, dark side as well. But that is, to me, a small part of what a priest is, and it's kind of like I like the whole idea of like, well, I'll be this person for you, I'll help you, but you mess with me, and I will tear your face off. You know what I'm saying? That kind of like, definitely,
Absolutely.
other side of it. So, but I think when you look at the priest and you look at the talent tree, and you see just how much of those talents go towards helping, and whether it's increasing the armor value when you get a critical strike, or putting and when you say nurturing, the first thing I think of is power word shield. You know what I mean? Because power, you're giving this person an absorption, basically, almost, and then so it's
also the only class in the game which has an absorption.
Yep.
In vanilla.
Yeah, exactly, and that's huge. You know what I mean? It's like it's almost like you're taking. Well, I would say a sacrifice for paladins, like you're taking the hit for them, but it's like you're basically, it really just says nurturing to me as well. And then the other part is the duality, and the devotion.
Duality,
but the duality as well is really interesting because like you said, there are these different sides, there are these different parts of it. But for me as well, the devotion, I would say, really plays to like the discipline tree, I would say, for me. As far as...
Did I just disconnect?
No. I think you're... Yeah.
Oh, am I still here?
Yeah, you're here. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think I disconnected.
Oh, I think well, having probably but the devotion part for me really screams discipline. You know what I mean? And devoting yourself and discipline and all this. And I think it's just really, really, really. You're on point with that.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, devotion is also something which I think comes into play with if you're duo leveling or if you're pocket healing someone, you're very devoted to your charge, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's and then like I said, the duality of having the kind of those two sides, the contrast between the shadow and the holy, and then playing into that, and I think
something which Priest might struggle with very well. I think people who struggle with that sort of having a dark side, having a bad temper and stuff, I think they might find that also very
Like I love
Yeah.
that. I really love the whole duality part of the priest, and I can definitely see some people not liking that as well. Yeah,
No, absolutely. I
yeah,
think that, and that's something which the priest I think is for people who are flawed or
yeah.
who see themselves as flawed, but want to be able to separate what they see as the bad part of themselves from everything else, and be like, okay,
Mm,
that's part of me, but it's not my main thing.
right, right,
I,
right.
I I've got that part, and I can unleash it if I want to, but that's not me the rest of the time. If you really want to be sort of pure and like I have no bad side, go for paladin.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Speaking of paladin, let's go there next.
yeah.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, paladin, I've also got devotion. Furthermore, endurance, stoicism, justice, and zealotry.
Hmm.
I think
Yes.
I think that sums up most of the sort of core themes of the paladin.
I really like the stoicism part because I feel like we're just talking about I think this plays into the whole role of forget the talent I just said. Well, a sacrifice, blessing of sacrifice of
Yeah.
taking on the pain and the hardships for that person. You know what I mean?
Oh
I
yeah.
love that part of the paladin and the justice as well. The justice of I feel like paladins are usually like that kind of morally
Paladin police
yeah
force.
paladin police source, right? But they're definitely more of like the moral I guess you would say like basically what the hell's the word? But they do what's right. Like they go by the code.
Mhm.
They go by what is right and what's like basically a knight. That's how I see a paladin in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like they kind of have another part to them as well. Whereas where you said that the zealotry, right? So or
Yeah.
yeah, zeal and that whole kind of thing. So it's
Yeah.
it's it's kind of
Well, I
yeah.
think in a way that's like the duality of the paladin is
Hmm.
that they risk going overboard.
Yes.
That's sort of the flaw that they have,
Look at
is that
the
they can become too zealous. They
and
lose sight.
that's the whole Scarlet Crusade part right there. It's like you can
Yep,
become
that's
this.
actually in the game.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
actually
Yeah,
in the game.
you and even though they're kind of
The light
tainted,
isn't just for good people.
right? Exactly. And yeah, we saw that in Legion too, where the light was. I paid attention to the whole story a little bit in Legion, where one of the what are they called
Naru?
the Naru, yeah, basically
Yeah.
was like kind of went insane and
He was a douche to Illidan, wasn't he?
yeah, basically kind of like a
Yeah.
douche to Illidan, yeah. So, yeah, there, yeah. I mean, who isn't, right? I mean, everyone's a douche to
Yeah,
Illidan
I
at
mean,
some
let's be
point.
fair,
Yeah,
everyone's a
yeah.
douche to
I mean, we definitely,
Illidan. Including
we
Illidan.
definitely like killed him at one point, So as the players, so
Yeah,
yeah,
we kind of did that, didn't
yeah.
we? Yeah.
But
Sorry about that, Illidan.
yeah, I know, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of cool too as well, where it's kind of you do have this part to you as well, like you said, that duality where they can kind of go overboard if they don't kind of keep control of that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's also Arthas, mind you.
Yes. Yes.
That's what led him to becoming a Death Knight.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And
So there's a lot of stories like that in WoW.
yeah. Yeah. So that's really good as well,
Mm.
man. I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah. As I think it's like kind of that duality between something like Uther and something like Arthas is it's a very thin line that these people are treading between
Yes.
being just between like justice and just straight up murder.
Yep. Exactly. And
Yeah.
yeah. And for a lot of people, like like they think they're doing right, and we see that a lot sometimes in religion where people
Exactly.
think they're doing for the better of mankind, but and cults, and that's how cults come out, where people like they're 100% in the belief that what they're doing is right and what they're doing is for the betterment
Yeah.
of mankind.
And I think in that regard, Paladin is a great class for anyone who finds themselves like sometimes alienating people just from being too zealous for any ideology. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
if
absolutely.
you find yourself like just going overboard on people for not following the same beliefs you do at any time, Paladin might be a great way for you to learn to tone it down at some points.
Yeah,
To be a bit more stoic, like take it in stride.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So great, great, great. I think these are amazing so far. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go for another thing which has some overlap here. Let's go for the warrior.
Nice.
Warriors share stoicism with paladins,
Hmm?
And I also have written down leadership,
Right.
wrath, which they share with priests,
Yes.
dominance, and protection.
Yeah, I could definitely see the stoic and the protection part being almost kind of the same of the and then the wrath of like that fury warrior.
Absolutely, yeah. Fury
Yeah,
warrior,
yeah,
PvP.
exactly. And what was the other
Yeah.
one? I'm sorry.
Leadership and
Leader.
dominance.
Oh yeah, leadership and dominance. I mean, dominance on the battlefield,
Yeah.
like it's just being, especially when you have a healer with you, right? Then you're
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And leadership role
Yeah.
absolutely thrusts into that leadership role.
Yeah.
And I always say, anyone who wants to play a tank, who wants to play a warrior, at some point realize that you are going to be put in that leadership role. People are going to put you there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the same thing goes for dominance, I think, is that it's something that you can learn just from having to stand up for yourself, essentially. There's like 2 tanks per raid, and if you want to be that tank, you'd better open your mouth,
Yeah. Yeah.
The whole thing about warriors is there's a lot of warriors, but you're kind of shit on your own, and you really have to like learn and be good and get good, to get done what you're doing. And I think that's where the stoicism also comes in.
Yeah, the patience, I guess.
You have to be able to take setbacks in stride.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the another thing is, I think a good raid leader is someone who is has that patience, has that calmness as well.
Absolutely.
But can also be the person who is the decisive factor and is giving people the direction that they need.
I think this is also something I've noticed, is that, and that's partially due to game mechanics as well, but there is a much stronger tendency for warriors to be either guild leaders or high-ranking officers in guilds.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely not a coincidence. Yeah.
No, it's not a coincidence, but it's something that the class promotes and that the class can teach as well. I think is just that attitude that you need. And coincidentally, I'm like the opposite of a warrior. I have no affinity with most of those traits.
I feel somewhat, but yeah, I understand. But I really do I love the fact how maybe possibly playing this class can teach you that, teach you some of these
exactly.
things. And that for me is
exactly. If you aspire to be more of a quote unquote alpha male, you probably should play a warrior.
Exactly. That's why Asmongold does it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he fails, but
Oh, I feel like we should... Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. He'll watch it on his stream and it'll be fun.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
More viewers for you. Right?
Oh man. But yes.
So someone listening to this is going to link it to. They're talking so much shit about you. It's good. It's good publicity. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of dominance, we got another class with that trait.
Oh.
We wrote these down a while ago. Yes, warlocks.
Ooh.
Warlocks.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Warlocks are a wonderful class because warlock, despite looking really niche, has so much just shit pumped into it in terms of mechanics.
So much nuance involved. There's so much nuance that you can do with a warlock. I feel like let's go into that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to sort of preface this a little because warlock can do so bloody much. This is really more of a stereotype than the archetype because So for warlock I have power, free thinking, dominance, independence, and vengeance.
Really,
so a lot of that is based on the sort of stereotype that warlocks are kind of pissed off at society, society sort of disowns them, and as a result they have to be independent, and they feel kind of annoyed about it, and they don't really like society. They take out their vengeance on whatever they feel like. I think
that's perfect for a warlock. Yeah. And then at the same time they have that power, and that power can corrupt as well.
Exactly. They have a lust for power. But they're also free thinking, I think.
Yeah, they definitely are. Yeah.
Compared to most of the other classes, they're very individualistic. Like they don't care too much about what society thinks about what they think.
Yeah.
And they're willing to. A lot of the warlocks you also see they're willing to sacrifice their own social standing and ability to move freely.
Yeah.
For the sake of protecting the society that they're within. I couldn't make it in mage school, but I still need to do something to fight, fight back against evil.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, they're willing to
I'm going to
sacrifice
just summon these
themselves.
demons,
Yeah, they're willing.
and
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
I'm willing to make that sacrifice,
Yeah, they're willing to
So in a way,
sacrifice.
in a way, they're very, and that's what I mean with free thinking, is that these traits are not necessarily like the reason why they became a warlock or something, but they might have to do with it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, and I think for a lot of people, I think that's also how they see their warlocks. Is that obviously the people who play Undead Warlock play it to be the evil, cartoon villain,
Yeah,
settling
yeah.
one cut like Skeletor, just ha ha ha, just
Fearing and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun to play the bad guys sometimes.
It is, man, and like you said, like they're willing to sacrifice themselves, but they're also
Mm.
willing to sacrifice others.
Absolutely,
To get their
absolutely, and
goal.
I think
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
thing. They're very pragmatic.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think people who feel like they have to do that in real life, who feel like they're sort of taking on undue ire from their societies, you know, I can't speak for all of the world, but I think in the Netherlands, at least, the military is kind of demonized sometimes, and a lot of the people in there probably could associate themselves quite well with the warlock. Like, we're doing what has to be done to save you, even if you're gonna, ostracize us for it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I guess yeah. Maybe the police here in the U.S. could feel something like that.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's probably a pretty good example. Yeah, it's a bit politically heavy, but
yeah,
I think it's a very striking example of the kind of people who might feel that way, who might associate with that,
right.
and who could learn perhaps from playing warlock to deal with that better.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. These are amazing. Let's keep going. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Here's another one that has independence. The Hunter.
Yeah.
Absolutely the most independent class. But unlike Warlock,
Yeah.
they don't seem to be that pissed off or ostracized for it. They just don't give a shit.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that guy who just moved out in the woods and just lives
Exactly.
out there. Yeah.
Difference. It's a nuanced difference. It's the same trait, but it's a nuanced difference in why.
Yeah.
So, furthermore, they have freedom, companionship, and exploration. So I feel Hunter really embodies the desire to go out in the world and explore it and be a part of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And they have a pet for companionship. And yeah, I feel like Hunter just represent the desire for freedom, really. They're very much yeah.
That's a really good way to say it. The desire for freedom, but also to have that companionship. It's like they still have that need somewhat for, some sort of connection to something.
Exactly. They're still connected to their societies despite being, on the fringes of it.
Exactly. And
yeah.
And I feel like, I'm thinking of Cargos because he plays both a warrior and a warlock, and I know at heart he's more of he plays a hunter and a warlock, and I know at heart he's more of a hunter. Because of like he definitely like has that companionship. He loves his dogs, you know what I mean, and he's more of that free kind of like. But he also doesn't fit into society. He's an entrepreneur, right? So he is very much does it by his own rules. He plays
exactly.
He doesn't play this social game. He does things by his own rules. And
is he also a very outdoorsy person?
Yes, I mean, and he is in the reserve, so he's in the military. So. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I say that's a lot of traits coming together right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I can definitely see both of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think for a lot of people who are just mostly interested in independence, like I'll tell you something. Like before I moved out of my parents' house, that actually happened only about a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've been living by myself. Before I moved out, I felt a lot more attracted to Hunter than I do now.
Ah, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, very interesting. Very interesting.
I mean, Classic WoW was announced about 2 years ago, so I already knew it was coming out, but I was leaning strongly towards Hunter or Warlock at that time.
Wow, because you wanted that freedom.
Because I want that independence, that freedom, that self-sufficiency. Yeah.
So interesting, man. I love this. This is so cool.
All right, well, we have a couple of classes left still.
Yeah.
Let's see, we have Druid, Rogue, Shaman, and Mage. Which would you like to do next?
Let's do Druid.
Druid. All right, here we go. So for Druid, we have Spirituality, adaptability, stoicism, wisdom, and pragmatism.
Perfect. 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 Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think spirituality speaks for itself. They're very in tune with nature, very in tune with themselves. I think there's a lot of comparisons that can be made with shaman in terms of spirituality.
Uh-huh.
That's also one of their traits. But druids are a lot more focused on the world, and shamans, by comparison, are a lot more focused on their tribe when it comes to
Yes,
sort of spirituality.
that's where the pragmatism
Yes.
comes from for the world,
And
I
that's
guess. Right?
yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
yeah.
The pragmatism there, they
Yeah.
really couldn't give a damn if a whole city burns down if it saves the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that also goes, but I think there's also sort of two general stereotypes when it comes to druid, which actually I'd like to go into that for a bit.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
for me, I sort of have in my mind, I have the female night elf druid on one hand, and a sort of male tauren druid on the other hand.
Mm.
And on the female night elf druid side, I see them as being kind of pissed off at all of the mortal races, like you're all fucking it all up, and
Yeah.
we have to clean up all your mess, and we should just wipe it all out and everyone go back to nature, and it's destroy the factories, whatever. And on the male druid side, I see the male tauren side, I would see more of a more compassionate with the mortal race, like understanding their struggles and trying to help them, trying to guide them
Yeah.
towards doing the right thing, rather than just getting really angry and trying to force them.
I definitely could see that as well. Yeah.
And both of those are definitely within the druid.
Yes.
Because they're different approaches to the same problem.
Yep.
And that's where the wisdom comes in, I think, is that some druids are more wise than others. Perhaps some are younger or older than others. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And some of them have more association with the mortal races than others.
Yeah.
I think they're all quite stoic in terms of, they have to be,
Yes.
because in terms of setbacks, Azeroth's been doing piss poor lately.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it got stabbed with a fucking sword. Jesus.
Yeah. Right.
That's yeah. I mean, it takes quite a bit of stoicism to just go, right, that happened. How do we fix it?
Right.
Rather than going, ah.
Yeah, I know, right? What the hell?
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think that's also part of the adaptability. They're always on the move, always going to where they're needed most. And they might not be the best at any one thing, but they can no matter where they are in the world, they can always try to fit in. They can always find a niche that they can fill, always find a way to be useful.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's very important to the druid archetype, is that these are like the world travelers. These are, the walkers of the ways, or whatever.
The guardians of the earth.
Yeah. They might not be the most powerful in any single thing, but they can do it all.
Exactly. Yep. Jack of all trades. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. But I think Jack of all trades isn't necessarily part of the archetype of the druid. It just sort of happens to be a result of their adaptability.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. I just had deja vu for some reason. Like it's someone mentioned that exact thing to me before. What you just said. Yeah, that was really weird. Yeah.
I always feel like deja vu is a message for the future. Like, I've heard it. I've heard this before, but it's not going to be until another 10 years.
Huh.
Yeah. It's weird like that. I'm pretty sure linear. Okay, this is going to sound weird. I'm pretty sure linear time is like not as linear as it seems. Just from stuff like that happening.
I honestly, I love like diving into that stuff. Maybe we could do another conversation about that.
That's some stuff for another time.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, let's shaman. Should we do shaman?
Yes. Completely unscientific, by the way.
I know, right?
Any scientific credibility. Linear time not being linear. Do not at me.
Oh man. Yeah. While we're talking about that kind of stuff, we should go into shaman, and the shamanistic.
Absolutely, yes. While we're tripping balls.
Yeah. Right.
Oh goodness, yes. Yes, shaman also spirituality. Also wisdom, by the way.
Yes.
But also something they share with warrior, leadership.
Absolutely.
And unification.
Wow.
Shaman to me is far, far more connected with their tribe, with their faction, than their counterparts, the paladin on the alliance side is. They really do strike me as tribal leaders.
You just made me realize something.
As the wise elders.
Just really made me realize something. that's why I feel like Melderon is such a good community figure head, and I feel like his tribe is the community,
Mm.
and his wisdom part is like the scientific side and like that and the other, and I just really just realized that about Melderon, that like he's the shaman and his tribe is the community and the CW, all the stuff that he's working on and all that. So I just realized that, and that is so cool that yeah.
Absolutely. It could very well be that way
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, that may in fact be part of why you like shaman. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. It's just crazy how you can
Yeah.
like. I think of like we went over hunter and warlock, and now we're going over shaman, and like, everything you just said just fits perfectly into a lot of how I feel. How he feels about shaman and how like he plays into that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, they are quite powerful archetypes for sure. For sure,
Yep.
it's part of what makes WoW attractive to people is that they do have such good archetypes, at least for Western culture.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
And shaman is interesting, right? Because it's not so much of a Western ideal.
No,
The shaman. It's
no.
yeah.
There are two things why it is very powerful in Western society still. One is our Germanic and Gaelic roots back before the Romans. That has a really long history and it has always stayed with us. It's been around for so long. It's very tradition.
Yes.
Secondly, Native Americans.
Yep.
Both of those have a huge influence. And I think, respectively, probably there's going to be more Native American influence for Americans
Yeah.
when they look at shaman, and for Europeans, it's probably going to be more about more influence from a sort of Germanic tribal or a Gaelic perspective.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. Um, so I think there's quite a bit of there's quite a lot going on with shaman, but I think you can look for, and also I think the traits there which you could perhaps aspire to by playing a shaman. I think shaman's a good class for someone who's looking to be a bit more of a advisor, perhaps, or a
Yes. Yes.
yeah, or just so the kind of person you go to with problems, kind of
Yes.
person that might also take leadership in times of need, who people go to
Exactly. Not
for
not not
help.
yeah,
Yeah,
not really like 100% the leader, but can fill that
no,
role. Can absolutely
he's
fill that
not
role. Yeah.
he's not the tribal leader, but he's the tribal deep in
Exactly.
wisdom. Yeah,
Yes.
he's the
Yes.
shaman.
Yep.
That's what shamans were historically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think druids can also play that part to an
Yeah.
extent, but they're more a neutral faction. They're who you go to if you can't go to your personal tribal's
Exactly.
elder for some reason.
Right. Right.
You know, they're the wandering wise guy. They're the Gandalf that comes by once in a while. And you
Right.
can have a
Right.
chat.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's perfect. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said this is also, I think, one of the reasons why Druid and Shaman have so much. Why Druid has so low of a population, especially on Horde side, is because they have Shaman already, and there's quite a bit of overlap
I
in
really
terms of the
yeah.
archetype.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
because there's more
yeah.
Druids on Alliance than there are on Horde.
Yeah, absolutely, and
Yeah, and
yeah.
you see that across the board. So
Yep.
you can see some of these things coming back in the statistics
Yeah.
if you look for them. Yeah. Okay,
Wow.
what do we have left?
Rogue and Mage.
Mage and Rogue?
Let's
Yeah.
do Rogue,
Okay.
yeah, first if you want.
Rogue.
Yeah.
Rogue. I love Rogue. So, Rogues are interesting because they are very broad in their archetype. So, what I've got written down here: knowledge, nuance, pragmatism, subtlety, and control.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
really like the control part, and yeah, and the yes, I can
Yeah.
definitely see that, and I feel like it's kind of covering. You're kind of covering all bases there.
Covering
Yeah.
most, yes,
Yeah.
it's some pretty broad definitions, but it doesn't quite cover the sort of combat rogue aspect because that's more warrior like for the most part, but
Right.
it covers the rest of it pretty well, I think.
Yeah. What was the first one you said
Yeah.
again? I'm sorry.
Knowledge.
Knowledge, right? And that's something
Yeah.
that you might not associate at first with a rogue,
No.
but and I really think it's interesting because in my dealings with as a rogue, I kind of feel like having to be put into multiple roles where you're either being the person that's stealthing around, like, taking care of your situation that you have to deal with. The fact that maybe you have, like, you have your lock picking, you have your other side, professions that you have is going on as well. But the other knowledge part is the knowledge of combat. You know what I mean? Having that knowledge of
Oh yeah,
combat, that's really a lot of what the rogue is
absolutely.
for me. Yeah.
Knowledge of human anatomy,
Yeah.
knowledge of just streetwise, spying on nobles, finding knowledge to control people. There's
Yes.
a lot of things going on with the rogue which pertain to knowledge which aren't academic in nature,
Right.
but which are very much
Kind of like street smarts. Street smarts compared to book smarts.
street
Yeah.
smarts, but also but also something that you could that you could learn in karate class, for
Exactly.
example.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a form of passed down knowledge, but it's not academic in nature. It's more muscle memory and stuff.
Yes. Yes. And that I
Yeah.
think is a pretty big differential from what like a knowledge of a mage would be compared to like a knowledge
Yeah,
of a
well,
rogue.
mage also has knowledge for the
Right.
same, but for different reason.
Exactly.
It's the
Yeah.
same trade, but different reason. And I mean, a
Different
rogue
reason.
can be a well-studied guy, of course.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you need to learn academic stuff on how to make blinding powders and
Yes.
throwing dirt in people's eyes.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was. Yeah. For the
Yeah.
and
They changed
and
that.
lock
They
picking.
changed that
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. 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 Oh, right. Right.
But yeah,
Right.
but I mean, vanishing powder. I don't know how that shit works. It turns you invisible. For 3
Yeah.
seconds.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that must have taken someone's surely.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think also just the pragmatism part is where a lot of the rogue's violence comes in. It's just like
Yes. Yeah.
work. I can't really get away. Kill people.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that's also goes into the sort of martial arty nature of the rogue. I feel like they're a lot more skill based than the warriors are in comparison. Like they're a lot more about precise strikes and being in control rather than just trying to do as much damage as possible with a big swing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that goes into their pragmatism as well, because one of the first things you learn whatever self-defense class you take is the best way to win a fight is just to not fight. And
Exactly.
I think
Yeah.
Rogue embodies that.
Yeah.
So if I want to win a fight,
100%.
I'm not going to engage the fight unless I kill.
And that's where the
You know?
control comes in as well, because you can
That's
you
control.
can
That's
control.
and
Yeah.
the subtlety, the patience. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things going on there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
and I think for and well, we'll get the mage as well, but like one of the main things that I feel about especially mage and rogue is that control, having the control when to fight, when I mean more so as a rogue, right? Because you have the control of to not even 100% even engage in this. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And yeah, actually, control and knowledge is also something they share with the mage, which I think is probably also pretty obvious from the kind of abilities that a mage has. If you've seen any mage PvP videos,
Right. Yeah.
it's pretty clear how much control they have.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, but in
That's it.
terms of in terms of rogue, what kind of person might want to play a rogue? I think it comes down to people in the shadows in real life as well. People
Mhm.
who want to who like to be part of a group, but not necessarily be in the spotlight.
Right. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and I think there are ways that rogues can benefit the group, and I've talked to like Cargos about this, where rogue a lot of times people say, oh, they're one of the most selfish classes, but whether you're opening someone's lockbox or a lot of times you can stun lock a mob so that it doesn't do damage to the tank or so the healer doesn't have to work as hard. There are ways that a rogue can benefit the group.
yeah. Yeah, I think rogue fits very well for people who want to be self-centered, but it's not a necessity for the rogue, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yeah.
It's more of a result of the rogue not being particularly necessary for a lot of things.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. But just to go past the mage, then we have knowledge, intelligence, control, and power. So I think intelligence speaks for itself. Power is something they share with the warlock. They're very much about getting as much damage in as possible, as quickly as possible. Lots of control with their spells, and very academically focused.
Right.
I think most people who study can feel some association with the mage, can feel some relation to
Yeah, the knowledge.
studying hard to studying hard and getting the power later on.
Right. Right. Having that
Yeah.
arcane knowledge and that very much the that's like one of the it's more like the book smarts when I think of it. Someone who's really
Yes.
just kind of taken this tome off the friggin' shelf and studied it and understood the deeper meanings of the arcane and all this kind of things, and very much of an RPG focused.
Absolutely. It's I think it's a very scientific thing that they've got going on, where they want to they will commit themselves to their field of study, and they just commit themselves full on in hopes of later getting that payoff, getting that reward,
Right.
or just because they really enjoy studying it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Real quick, I know you wanted to go over the rating and PvP stuff real quick. So yeah.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are getting on in time a bit. It's fine for me, but I'm sure you've got other things to do.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to touch real quick on some transferable skills that you can get based on the sort of end game, in terms of raiding and PvP. So for raiding, I think the skills are persistence, dedication, delayed gratification, and teamwork. I think is very
yeah, definitely teamwork. I mean, 100%, especially when you're playing with 40 people. You realize that there is a lot that goes into even some of the smallest encounters. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And persistence, look, even Method, they raid the mythic bosses, they die 100 times, they wipe 200 times, they wipe 300 times night after night.
I've been
they
there
have to
before,
keep going. They're dedicated. They have to keep doing it every night. Because you're not going to get geared up if you just raid once. You got to do it every night. If you keep wiping, you keep trying, and that's also what leads to delayed gratification. Because at the end of the day, you're just looking at real bling with your tier 3.
Yep.
You're going to be walking through Orgrimmar or Ironforge.
Dude.
Everyone's going to be looking at you, asking, "Oh, where'd you get that?"
I remember, I did the whole mythic raiding scene for a little while, and remember.
Yeah, actually, what got me into raiding in TBC was seeing a night elf priest walking around in tier 3.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's
really cool.
so rare to see, But
I was like, oh my god, angel wings and Halo, I want that.
Yeah, like when you, I mean, it's literally what will make, because I've been there where we had almost 200 wipes on a boss. I remember when we were doing, for instance, it was a really hard fight back in Legion, was Gul'dan and Mythic, and that was, but once we got him down, man, and got that gear, it was all worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The satisfaction after you actually finally managed to down that bloody boss.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go with PvP real quick as well then.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think this might be a little unexpected for some people.
I
think the main traits that you need and can learn from PvP are self-control, rapid reflexes, and quick thinking.
Yes, absolutely. Quick thinking. Yes.
Yes. Quick thinking is probably very obvious to most people. You need to react on the fly.
Yep.
Going on your screen, think ahead.
Yep.
And rapid reflexes for those quick counter spells and such.
Yeah.
Well, those two are pretty obvious, but I think less obvious perhaps for some people is self-control.
What do you mean by that?
So, how getting ganked over and over really pisses you off?
Yes, not going out there, just going and killing him and trying, I'm going to get this guy, actually.
Self-control relates to emotional self-control. You can't play your best if you're getting upset, if you're letting people get to you, if you're letting that guy that's teabagging your corpse as a druid in cat form really get you.
Yep.
And this is something that you see in all the top PvPers of any game. Say they die, they wipe, no emotion, no anger, no crying.
Yep.
Just, okay, what do I do next? How do I get back in this fight? How do I turn this round? How do I
learn from my mistakes?
What can I learn from this mistake?
Exactly.
And that is something which a lot of people struggle with in real life.
Oh yeah. Absolutely, dude. Yes. Yeah.
And that's something that PvP can teach you real quick, because you are not going to get rewarded for getting upset or rage quit.
Nope.
Absolutely not. And I mean, this is even talking about getting to rank 14. This is just winning a match.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's something that a lot of people should also consider when thinking about what they want to do in the end game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now
it's a lot of things people can learn.
100%.
These are things which you can observe that have played a lot of World of Warcraft and that have achieved certain objectives. That they do embody these traits.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say, the other two you had for PvP, I'm sorry, they were the PvP.
Self-control, rapid reflexes, and quick.
Rapid reflexes is a quick thought, right? So, as far as a healer, I feel like that really has to do with PvE as well, because in healing and PvE, you know, it's so much like being a proactive healer compared to being a reactive healer, right? Knowing what's going to happen next, and okay, I've got to pick now the right rank heal. I've got to pick to make sure that I got the right rank, so I'm not using too much mana. I got to make sure I'm not going to overheal. Is someone else putting out a heal? Maybe I shouldn't. There's so many things that go into thought when healing, especially when you have 10, 11 other healers, you know, with you. And I really, really, really like that the response. And you know,
healing is a great exercise in multitasking.
Oh my god, it is. Yeah. Especially when you're streaming too.
Actually, so since we're about to finish off, I'll tell you a little quick story about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been applying to a job as an air traffic controller.
Oh, nice.
And as you might know, I have rated as a healer for 2 expansions.
Right.
And so far, I've already passed through 2 of the tests, including the multitasking test. And the multitasking test was easy compared to epic rating.
Huh.
It's really something else. Like watching 40 or 25 or whatever health bars and all of your other healers and everything else going on in the raid at the same time.
Yep.
Really prepares you, you know, for doing that sort of stuff on a radar screen.
That's really cool.
It's very surprising how transferable they
are. That's what we mean, man. Like it would be so cool to be able to use WoW as a friggin' reference, as you know, into an application, because and that's a good way I think to wrap this up is I have learned so much from this game. You know, whether it's social, whether it's you know, like helping me in my, you know, just being able to you know, multitask better, or being able to deal with situations better. I 100% can say that WoW has impacted my life much more positively than negatively.
Absolutely.
You know, and for a fact, I feel like every time I play a new class or have a new experience, I learn something new, and I am still learning to this day. Every single day I play this game.
Absolutely. There's so many transferable skills you can gain from playing this game. And I think that was sort of the point of me coming on this podcast, was to try and help people understand that, and hopefully help them pick a class and race and gender and the kind of thing that they want to do in game, and realize that this isn't a waste of time. This is something that you can do for personal self-development.
Yeah.
And it can really help you with that. You know, and I hope that people, you know, that they take something from this, that they learn from it, and that they can, you know, enrich their experience in WoW and in real life from playing classic WoW.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. We are literally just a couple days out now, and
just a few
days, man. I am so looking forward to these experiences.
Still feels surreal.
It does. Like, I pinch myself, like, seriously. But to think that we're going to be having these experiences again, being able to share them with other people, and what's really excites me is being able to do this with people who have never done it before, people who are experiencing for the first time. I love that.
I look forward to the noobs.
I know, me too, man. I really do.
Oh my goodness. I already had an experience on the stress test, just as a druid healing some guy who was, you know, on his last legs about to die. And it's just so satisfying having that guy write thanks in the chat, you know.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, man. Well, you know what, Dailato, I can't thank you enough for coming out tonight, man. And
no worries, man. It was my pleasure.
I really wish you luck in the days to come with the launch. And what server are you going to be rolling on again?
At the moment, it's looking like Xandalar Tribe for RPPVP.
Okay, gotcha. I know for a fact that I'm also going to have an EU account as well, so I'll be playing over the EU, and maybe that's the EU realm, correct?
Yeah, that's EU RPPVP. Yeah.
Maybe I will create a character over there, and maybe have an alt over there. So,
absolutely.
But you know, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. And I gotta say, man, this has been so eye-opening, and just I love looking at this aspect of the game, and I cannot thank you enough for coming on.
That.
So, is there anything that you wanted to plug, or just is there anything you're just coming on the show? Is there anything you wanted to promote?
No, I got kicked from my guild a few hours ago. So
okay. Well,
unfortunately, no. But no. Thank you very much for having me on. And about anything else, you know where to find me.
Awesome. Yeah, guys. Real quick, I just wanted to mention that If you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on YouTube, we also have DefTalk on Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, and Spotify. And we also have a website known as classicwild.live, where we have a leveling guide that has been just absolutely amazing. We were talking about a little bit before in the preamble with Dailato, and I think it's just 100% awesome. You guys should definitely check it out. It is classicwild.live /leveling guide if you want to take that a look at.
Yes, cannot recommend enough. It's so good. If you don't want to pay for Joanna's guide, just go there. It's better.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, man. So, but yeah, you guys, you can catch, DefTalk at any time on, like I said, on YouTube or on the other ones, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, or Spotify. And we also have, plenty of other content on the site. We also have a twitch.tv/Defcamp, where I regularly stream, and you guys can check me out there. And I appreciate you guys sticking to it. I know we didn't have Melderon tonight, but I feel like having Dailato was just... I mean, it's like you took over that whole scientific eye of the game, so I really appreciate that, man. Really
no
do.
worries. Yeah, I hope Melderon enjoyed it too.
I know he's gonna love this. He's been working on what he's working on since 7 o'clock this morning, and still has ways to go. So,
dedication there.
Yeah, I know. But again, brother, thank you so much for coming, guys. Keep on keybinding and grinding. My name's Defcamp. Our guest today was
Dailato.
Yep, and guys, again, we have just a few more days, so keep on keybinding and grinding and have fun. We will see you guys next time. Peace.